Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for clicking, and if you're not new here, what's up, bestie? My name today is going to be Mistress because...
Bitch, I'm the cure for your drag delusion.
No, but in all seriousness, the reason why I'm making this video like so soon after my last video is because I just got done watching this show, and I had a lot of thoughts about it, and I know everybody has their thoughts about this show right now, but nobody can think like me, you know what I mean? So basically, I watched this show called The Idol out of boredom. I didn't really have anything to watch. I heard about this show in passing, like that it was coming out, but I didn't know much about it. And when I heard that the creators of Euphoria was attached to it, I was like, okay. And then I saw drama attached to it before the show even dropped, with articles talking about how it was extremely lewd and sexual content in it that was very disturbing. And then I remember seeing like the Weeknd defending it, you know, saying like, oh, y'all are tripping or whatever. And I remember a clip of Sam Levinson, who created the show, basically saying that this show was going to be the show of the summer.
My wife read me the article. I looked at her and I just said, I think we're about to have the biggest show of the summer.
Now I'm going to go to a few different things here, and the first thing that we are going to be talking about is the show itself. Honestly, you could chalk this show up to being a weird story of drugs in Hollywood, but they tried to make it seem like it was something deeper. From the moment that the show started, they had this situation with this pop star, and it was a very, very graphic situation that kind of set the tone for what the show was going to be. And when I say it set the tone for what the show was going to be, I mean it kind of showed that this show was going to delve a lot into like the constant cursing, which is not a problem with cursing, but sometimes it's like if you can't go more than 2 minutes into a scene without saying the F word, I mean, I just feel like that's a bit much. And I'm not saying that's a bit much like I'm some kind of prude. I'm saying that's a bit much because it sounds like middle schoolers on the playground.
Creative direction fucking sucks with Jocelyn. You're the fucking creative director. What is it with this fucking industry? Everybody hates what they fucking do.
I'm fucking forced to. The greatest fucking idea in the world, and often I fucking do.
And the way that this show opened up set the tone for that. After introducing the whole drugs in Hollywood in the first episode, it goes into this little love story. I really don't think it was a love story, but I guess a love story of a pimp and a pop star. I don't think anybody needed a show about a pimp and a pop star falling in love, but we got it. The show also had a bunch of lazy side stories, if I'm being honest. One of the reasons why I was really excited to watch the show was because Jennie from Blackpink was in it. And when I saw her down as one of the characters, I was like, oh yes. And I saw Troye Sivan was in it. I was like, oh yes. And their characters' little side stories were very lazily written and very like cut short. Like I don't know how to really describe it besides saying that they wrote these characters into the show and it felt like whatever plans they have for them, they forgot about the characters. And then at the last episode, it was like, oh, let's hurry up and just like finish up their little stories. And it's like, wait, we haven't heard anything about these characters for like 3 episodes. Mind you this, the show is 5 episodes. That's something else that's a little interesting. I'm like, the show is 5 episodes and you start these character stories for side characters in episode 1 and don't revisit them till like episode 4 and 5. That made no sense to me. Another thing was the plot. The plot was very thin, I would say. And the writing was not so great. Like I said, not my phone falling. A lot of the scenes with the Weeknd's lines, honestly, it's weird because it's like a lot of people, you could blame it on his acting, but you also have to pay attention to the writing. And I would say the writing for his character was dog shit.
Boundaries.
My family are doctors.
Are you a doctor?
No, I'm not, but my sister and my father, they're both gastrointestinal doctors, so.
My friend's a gynecologist. You don't see me sticking my finger in everybody, do you?
Like even the whole scene when he was going off on the guy in the like parlor that they were in when she was getting dressed, I was like, come on, the writing for this is like so garbage right now.
Let me catch you looking at her again. Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm not.
Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm sorry,
Let
I'm
me
not
fucking
sure.
catch you looking at her again. I'll fucking drag you down Rodeo while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry.
Another thing that this show had was the sex scenes. Now, that was the main thing. I would say this show was mainly sexual content with a side of story. Like, instead of it being a story with sexual content in it, it was mainly sexual content in it. I'm not bothered by sexual content in movies and shows. You know, that's not a trigger for me. But I will say, like, as somebody that watches rated R stuff all the time, like, I'm a horror movie person. I love comedy movies that do that stuff too. This just did too much. And also, I really would say, if anybody decides to watch this show, do not eat food while watching it. I was very regretful of eating food while watching a good chunk of scenes. I'm just sitting there with my bowl of food, and a whole disgusting scene will pop up, and I'll just be like,
"Are you serious?"
Not what it looks
right in front of my salad.
Now, I know I went into a bunch of negative stuff when I'm talking about, you know, the show itself, but one thing I do want to say is there is a positive. A good thing I will say that this show did have is the music. The music from the show, like, while watching the show, I was kind of like, I don't like some of these songs, like, you know, because I'm seeing them sing it a cappella or do it deconstructed. But out of curiosity, I went and downloaded the soundtrack for the show, and I will say, the songs were really good. I was like, oh my gosh, like Susanna Son, the songs that she made, I loved them. I was like, wow, these songs are really, really great. So I will say one good thing that this show definitely does have is the music. And the show is about music in a way. It's supposed to be about music, but it's not. It's strange, but at least they got the music right. And with The Weeknd working on the show, I would expect him to get the music right. He may not be a great actor, but he is a damn good musician, and we can't take that away from him. Now that I've went into the show itself, let's get into the characters. First up, we have Jocelyn. So, of course, Jocelyn is played by Lily Rose Depp, who is Johnny Depp's daughter. And, you know, with him being such a great actor, I expected her to do good, which she did. Her acting was okay. It wasn't, like, amazing or anything, but it was okay. It was good for the most part. I feel like she needs a different, like, breakout role. I feel like this is supposed to be her big role. No, darling, this was not it. I want to see them give her another chance in a different show, maybe, because I think she would do a good job. But her character Jocelyn felt like she was supposed to have some type of depth, and she's supposed to have all these layers to her, and honestly, I did not see it. I did not see it or feel it. I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on that, especially with the writing. Everything with her character going from like this naive type of pop star who's, and it's weird too, because like they wanted us to think she was naive for some of the writing, but also for other parts of the writing, it was like she's clearly not naive. And that's like supposed to be the layers, like, ooh. Like, I remember people online saying Sam Levinson said something about like, oh, she's supposed to be manipulative. I'm like, no, not really. Y'all just wrote her terribly. Y'all wrote one part of her to be like this naive, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, pop star. But then you wrote, like, in other scenes, it's like, oh yeah, no, I do this all the time. Like, I do this business. I know everything. And it was like, it wasn't even done in a way of like, I know what I'm doing. It was done in a way of like, there were two different writers at certain points for her. And they ruined the depth for her character. The writing for her character was not that great. And they always talked about her past as a child actor, and also with her and Troye Sivan's character Xander, how they grew up together and stuff like that. And I honestly would have loved to see that instead. I heard that the show originally was supposed to show like her life from being a child actor up to being this huge pop star or idol or whatever. I would have loved that. That sounds like more of a cohesive story from beginning to end, and it would have been cooler to see. They could have showed whatever dark sides of the industry that they were trying to show, but they didn't do that. Instead, they made this, and they kind of ruined the writing for her character, and none of it felt cohesive, and all of the past stuff that they talked about with her, I would have rather seen it. I didn't want to hear about it. Show me her on the Disney Channel or whatever she was supposed to be on. Show me this stuff. It was supposed to be like, I don't know. I did not appreciate them just explaining away, oh, this happened in her past. Now let's move on. So honestly, when it came to Jocelyn's character, I just couldn't get a read on her. The next characters we want to talk about is the team. And by the team, I mean her team with her manager, producer, I forgot what their roles specifically were, but I know the characters were Nikki, Haim, and Destiny. Now, honestly, I feel like these characters were honestly kind of useless. When I say useless, I'm not talking about like the characters themselves, like they weren't doing their job. I'm saying the characters felt like they could have been left out of the show, or they could have been phone call characters like that one guy that was throughout the show. I forgot if he was like the label manager or whatever. But they could have been phone call characters because they kept bringing them into scenes and nothing would happen. Like when Leia called them, was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is going on, and then Haim and Destiny were at the house. And then nothing really happened with that. They're just like, oh yeah, this guy seems like he's bad news. But then they were super nice to him, and then they just left. And I was like, these characters kind of feel like they didn't need to be here. Or if they were going to be here, they could have been phone call characters, like on the phone. They didn't have to really be having full scenes. Yeah, I feel like a lot wasn't done with them. I feel like a lot more could have been done with them. I guess if the show was more fleshed out, they could have written them a lot better, and they could have written them real stories into there, but they did not. They were honestly just so vague and enigmatic that I didn't get their characters, and I still don't get their characters. Next up, we have Rat Tail. So The Weeknd tried to be a pimp, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I see what he tried to do. I see how he approached it. Did it work? No. Was it okay? No. He honestly, I would say the biggest problem with The Weeknd's character is two things. Like I said, the writing for this show, trash. The writing is terrible. They needed better writers. I don't know. Did this show start around the writer's strike? Wait, no, it couldn't have. It didn't. It's okay, so there's no excuse. They're just terrible writing for the show. That's one problem. The second problem is his acting. His acting was so strange that I honestly questioned whether I was watching a skit or an actual TV show every time he was on screen. I was gagged. I was like, is this SNL? Is this real right now? I wasn't really computing. And his story as Tedros was honestly very straightforward and was not as deep as they tried to make it seem. Like, deep is mysterious. Like, no, he was clearly an asshole pimp who did some fucked up stuff in the past and who got away with it and is now trying to redo it and failed, I guess. Like, it was very straightforward. I don't get the whole like, oh, this guy is such an enigma. No, he's not. He's a pimp. He's an asshole. He's a jerk. He was an abuser. That's it. Like, there's nothing deep about that. And if there was something deep they could have did with it, they didn't. What is that sound outside? Oh my God, I hate that. The deepest part of his character, I guess, will be him and with all of his talent people, or the people that he had that was talented. And even then, it just was like, that wasn't even really his character. I mean, it wasn't that deep. You know, and he's supposed to be this whole like, oh, I find artists and I just know how to find people or whatever. And it's like, okay, what now? That was one line. What are we doing? I felt like his character was honestly written terribly, and I feel like he did not do good acting on his part. And honestly, I feel like I will say one thing. I feel like they wanted to make him feel threatening, and they could have with better writing, and if it wasn't The Weeknd. Because nothing about him felt threatening. Any scene that he's supposed to be threatening, I was laughing my ass off. I was on the floor. I was like, sir, I would just like backhand you into a wall. You will fly. Like, nothing about him was intimidating in the show. Next up, we have Xander and Leia. So I like Troye Sivan in real life, and the actress that plays Leia, Rachel Sennett. I love her. I love her too, from Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I recommend that. But anyway, maybe I'll do that at the end of this. Okay, wait. Let's focus on this. But anyways, their characters were constantly the victims of attack. They were constantly talked to negatively. They were constantly treated shitty. Troye Sivan's character was assaulted. It was a lot that went on with that. And it was a lot that, I will say, he was a pretty good actor. He set up layers, especially into like him talk about his past and that contract that he was forced to sign when he was a kid, and then them saying you're a liar. I was like, they started pulling me in with that little storyline. I was like, wait, what's going on? What's the tea? What's the whole situation? But then they just dropped it. And then they just like turned him into an asshole too. Like, he joined in with the clique and started like treating Leia like shit also. I just was very much like disappointed. I was really disappointed. And that was the writer's fault. That was not Troye Sivan's fault, because I will say he was doing good with his acting. But the writers, like, y'all dropped the ball on that. Y'all had me pulled in and let it go, and just like threw that whole little tidbit of a story away for no reason. I still don't get why they did that. They honestly dropped the ball with Xander, and I feel like I said, the show would have been a lot better if it showed Jocelyn's life from when she was younger, and they could have showed a lot of Xander's backstory too. That would have been so cool. I actually would have liked that. That would have made this show very enjoyable. Leia. Now, Leia's character was the punching bag. Everybody treated her shit. Like, she never got a moment to like of anything, any positivity. constantly was treated like shit by any and everyone. And honestly, the whole time I found myself screaming at the TV screen saying, quit, okay? Quit your job. You do not deserve to go through this bullshit. Leave it. Like, I found myself saying that constantly. And honestly, I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for, but I was so happy at the end when she quit. That's the one little storyline that I was following throughout the show. And I was like, okay. Y'all got me with one thing. Y'all ate that one little thing. Y'all ate that one thing. Like, that whole storyline with Leia, I was happy that it ended with her leaving. They didn't show Jocelyn's reaction to it. I would have liked to see that. But, I mean, at the same time, you know, whatever, I guess. But yeah, basically her character's job in this show was just to be treated like shit. And that had me just feeling bad for her the whole time. That's all I can really say for Xander and Leia. All the other characters. Now, as far as all the other characters in the show, either they were not given enough like story, backbone, or screen time to really like do anything with, or if they did have a plot line, it was never fully fleshed out. Like I said, I was so excited to see Jenny, and they didn't flesh out anything for her plot line. We see a whole little thing start with her in episode 1, and then it kind of doesn't really go anywhere after that. And then in the last episode, it's like, oh yep, it's all over. And she's like, is it Jocelyn? And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, none of this felt fleshed out. None of it felt like it was actually real writing. It just felt like they just were like, oh, we forgot about this character. Let's just say that this happened. Like, that's what it felt like. And honestly, I was disappointed. So a lot of the other characters in the show, that's why I'm just calling them the other characters, they kind of just ruined it. Whereas I have no words. There's nothing I can really say because the characters were barely in it. So now let's talk about the person behind it all, Sam Levinson. Now, I know I'm probably going to be like the 100th person to say this, but I think it's time for Sam Levinson to hang up the coat. He did great with Euphoria Season 1. He kind of faltered quite a bit with Euphoria Season 2. Like, quite a bit. And this is an absolute fail. And it's like, instead of him, and from what I constantly keep seeing articles about, people that work with him are like, it's difficult to work with him because he doesn't take criticism. And also, I guess he doesn't want to listen to anybody else when it comes to certain things. And I'm like, well, that's his prerogative. But you know what? It's time to hang up the coat with him. And the person I'm talking to right now when I say hang up the coat with him is A24. A lot of you may not know that A24 is actually the production company that is over Euphoria and The Idol. So, and they're also over quite a few other things. I love A24. They made films such as Everything Everywhere All at Once, Bodies, 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 X, Pearl, all those different things. And honestly, I think A24, you guys need to hang up the coat with Sam Levinson. That needs to be like, him, y'all deal with him, needs to be done. No offense to him, but I mean, I'm just being real. This was not it. This was an embarrassment on his resume. If I'm being real, it should be an embarrassment on his resume. The only reason why I'm saying it should be an embarrassment on his resume is because when it comes to the writing of this show, it was so lazily done. And when it comes to the actors that he picked for certain roles, either they were not good actors, or if they were good actors, he did nothing with their characters. And it felt like, what was this? It made no sense. It felt lazy. It did not feel like it was made by somebody that's supposed to be as experienced as he is. I was very disappointed. He said it was going to be the show of the summer, and he was wrong. Very wrong. Surprisingly so, the show of the summer turned out to be The Bear. I don't know if you guys have seen The Bear. You probably have. If you haven't, watch The Bear. I know this is like terrible. I'm doing a show plug while talking about this show, but like The Bear was the show of the summer. And The Idol just was not it. And yeah, you disappointed us all, dude. So here are my final thoughts. I honestly don't think this show is a dumpster fire, unwatchable, one of the most terrible things ever, like some people are saying. It's watchable. It was no use in the show being made. Like, when I watched the show, I'm like, what was the point of it? I was left thinking to myself, what was the point of this show, especially at the end of it? And honestly, it was more so a dumpster smoke, like a smoldering little smoke, not a dumpster fire, a dumpster smoke. And I think that so much could have been done to fix it. As you guys have heard me say, the writers, some of the actors, and especially the storylines, everything just was like, what were they thinking when they made this? Overall, I think this show did a lot more harm to everybody's involved careers. Everybody that was involved in the show, this did harm to their careers more than it did good. And I think that they need to just hop onto whatever project they have next and just Keep it pushing like this never happened. The Weeknd, he needs to just stop tweeting people, focus on your next album or whatever songs you're about to make next, and just push forward. That needs to be that. Lily Rose Depp, you know, she's Johnny Depp's daughter, so she's pretty much, I think she's gonna be fine. I think she just needs to find another movie or something. She could talk to A24 and be like, hey, you guys got a horror movie I could be in? Hop in that. Great. Rachel Sennett is going to be okay. We love Rachel Sennett around here. She has a few movies actually already coming out, so she's good. Troye Sivan, focus on your next album. Focus on getting into another movie. Just stay away from this and don't mention this show anymore. I think, and as far as Jenny, I think she needs to find something else. This is supposed to be her big acting debut, and it was absolutely ruined because they just sidelined her character. So I think that she should probably just look for something else, like another show to go to, and look for something that could center a little bit more around her. Yeah, this show honestly did more harm to everybody's careers than good, and it was kind of useless. There was no reason for it to be made. Like I said, it wasn't unwatchable. It just wasn't good. So now we have reached the end of the video, and it is time for my suggestions of the day. My show suggestion of the day is the show Pose that is on Hulu right now. Pose tells a story of the ballroom, of a community that is in the ballroom community in New York in 1984, I think. 1984, 1980s. And the show talks about many different things that were going on in the LGBT community back in that time, especially the fight with AIDS. And it is I would say it's a really entertaining show. It's a very deep show. It's a very good show. I like Pose. My song suggestion of the day is Sunburned by Dominic Fike. Now, Dominic Fike just released his new album. It is absolutely amazing. And my favorite song from the album is Sunburn. Please check that song out. It's fantastic. Check the whole album out. Check the whole album out while you're at it, because that album is great. But Sunburn, one of my favorite songs from that album. And my movie suggestion of the day is Bodies, 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 which is currently on Showtime, I think. And Showtime is about to go into Paramount Plus. So yeah. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is a horror film. Basically, these friends are, you know, they're all about to hang out for the weekend in one of their friends' mansion, and a hurricane comes, so they're all inside, and basically they decide to play a game called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. But then something dangerous happens, and everyone is left pointing fingers at each other. So that's all I can really say about that movie. It's a really good movie. It also has Rachel Sennett in it, the one that played Leia. She's awesome. Yeah, I think you should check it out. That was a really good movie. I liked it. But yes, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys later. So yeah. Bye!